Everyone, I'm Charlie, and welcome back to another DraftKings DFS slate breakdown. Today we have, for this video, we have this Tuesday UCL slate, seven gamer, Bayern and PSG leading the way as the big favorites at minus 700 and minus 300. And then all the other games pretty relatively even in terms of odds, although PSV are minus favorites against Brest. Then every other game plus odds. So yeah, a lot to get into. Seven gamer. Let's go into sets and lineups. For Shakhtar, it should be Sudakov and Zubkov, Bayern, Kimmich, and I want to say Olise still splits. It was weird that over the weekend, Kimmich took the side that Olise usually does. I don't know if it's a one-off or whether it's just a new pecking order they have, but I assume Olise will still split. Either way, still a smash spot for both those guys. Atalanta and Real Madrid. For Real Madrid, in this team, it should be mostly Modric. If Arda Güler is in, there's a chance of a split there. For Atalanta, it should be Lookman Monopoly, Bayer Leverkusen Inter, Grimaldo, and probably a weird split in this team. If Alex Garcia starts, he'd be the guy splitting. So a little bit of lineup dependency there. And then for Inter and this team, it should be a Çalhanoğlu monopoly. Interesting, they have DiMarco not in the starting lineup. He's missed quite a few UCL games. If he was in, though, of course, he'd be the guy to split with Hakan. Brest and PSV. For Brest, it should be Del Castillo. If Del Castillo doesn't start, which he has not been typically, it should be Doumbia. And then for PSV, it should be Noah Lang. And if he doesn't start, it should be Tillman. A lot of times Lang gets subbed early anyway, so it just ends up being Tillman sets at some point. Regardless, for Brugge and Sporting, it should be De Kuyper and potentially Jashari splitting. They're both lefties, but De Kuyper only takes this lefty outswinger side here. And because of that, it'll be Jashari taking lefty in-swingers on the other side. And for Sporting, they're just a bit of a mess. I'm expecting Cow as the most likely taker, although Araujo's taken a lot in the past. Edwards has taken a lot in the past, still under a new manager, so definitely can take some settling down after Amarim left. But Trincão's been the guy who's taken the most here. Leipzig and Aston Villa. For Leipzig, it should be Saywald. Even at center back, should probably take a monopoly in this team. For Aston Villa, it should be Digne and Tielemans. Of course, if there's always a chance that McGinn could hop on a couple, but Digne and Tielemans have been pretty consistent lately. They haven't done as much swapping and flip-flopping as they have previously. Salzburg and PSG, it should be mostly Glauc, Bobby Clark, chance of splitting there. And for PSG, it should be almost everything for Lee Kang-in because of the suspension for Ousmane Dembele. Okay. Oof. A lot already. Now we got prices, and there's a ton of guys here. Benny Jr., questionable, see if he plays. Noah Lang, I think he's too much here, 10,200. Mbappe, that is really cheap at 9,400. I don't mind that. Pepe, 9,300, that's a little much. Gyökeres for GPP at 9K, don't mind. Lookman, 8,600, once again, don't mind. I'm more of a GPP play. These PSG guys seem cheap to me too. Like Barcola, I think is minus odds to score. I don't mind him at 8,200. Asensio, if he starts, I don't think he was in projected. Let me check. They're playing Salzburg. Yeah, non-projected. But if he's in, I don't mind that a ton either, especially if we get like Lee Kang in not starting. Asensio is probably the next likely taker. Like that's going far down the pecking order at that point, but I feel like it will be Asensio. He has taken a little bit in the past, but it was mainly at the beginning of the season. Ramos 8K is okay. Bakayoko 7,600, I don't think is terrible. CDK had a crazy game. Last UCL slate, 7,400. It's like 3K more than he was. I don't love that as much. Sonic 7K. This is the first starting Bayern attacker that we've gotten to. And you can just tell that they're all kind of underpriced. Like Muller, 6,900, super cheap as well. So yeah, I think you'll find that a common theme here is that Bayern is wildly underpriced. I'll get there again. When we get to mids, there's going to be a lot of guys I'll talk about then. So yeah, Sane I like a lot at 7K. I might like that more than any of the other payups we've gone through so far, just because it's my 700 favorite matchup. Bayern are super banged up right now, so because of that, there's not a ton of subs they're able to make. I'll show an example of this. I think Olisa went like 90 in the cup game. Were they playing Shakhtar? Like look at all these injuries. Coman, Nabry, Kane all out. That Intel I think was questionable with an illness as well, although it's not showing up here. We'll see if he's on the bench tomorrow. But there's just a ton of guys missing for Bayern, especially attackers, and because of that, opens up a lot of minutes for these guys who typically don't go 90, like your Sane, like your Elise. Musial is usually a 90 guy, so I wouldn't he probably isn't affected too much by that. But like all these guys now have a lot better chance of going 90 minutes, and they've all been priced down a ton. So yeah, I just love Bayern here. Due at 6,400. I don't think that's bad if he starts. Has barely played for PSG, but he's just a super talented player. He really shined in the Olympics once again off the bench though. Just cannot seem to be getting minutes wherever he's gone, but super talented player. 6,400. I think that's super tempting. Other guys I'm liking a lot here. Kolo Muani, if he's in, I think that's a phenomenal play. That is super cheap exposure to PSG, and he's cheaper than like all the Bayern attackers. So I'd love if Kolo Muani started. I'd love that as a play. Trincao, I don't mind that at 5,200 potential sets there. Once again, that was just hard to get away from going at least one of Sane or Muller just because of the matchup there, or potentially a Barcola you want to be a little bit more expensive than that. I think it's just such a great time to stack PSG and Bayern. Another alternative, though, is Luke de Jong. That's a super cheap forward on a minus favorite. If he starts, he's typically a 90-minute player. When in, Ricardo Pepe's been hot, but he's still the main kind of guy for PSV. And when he's healthy, he's just their go-to striker. And they'd rather play both of them together than bench de Jong, typically. So yeah, those are a lot of kind of big forwards I like, especially in cash. Most of those guys like Openda, Lautaro Martinez, who I don't mind. Retegi in your contrarian GPP builds, especially on a 7 game where there's going to be goals, especially from some of these off games when everyone's focusing on your PSG, on your Bayern. So yeah, just definitely get some leverage there. But for cash, I think just stick to the basics. Go PSG, go Bayern, and then look for set takers for punts if you're not going that route, like a Trincao or just a Luke de Jong if you want more a little more upside there. Midfielders, Beard's on 800. I love Beards. I just think he's a little much here when we get to some of the Bayern prices, but he's been super hot. I wouldn't fault anyone for going there. But then yeah, there's Musial at 7,300. Another minus odds goal scorer. He's been super hot. I want to say he's guaranteed 90 minutes. They literally didn't even start him over the league game with a ton of forwards injured. They started Guerrero on the wing over letting Musiala get tired legs. So I just think that's a phenomenal play at 7,300. He's just too cheap. He should be with Wirtz at 9,800. Kimmich 6,800. Once again, too cheap. He's been so solid. I spent a ton of set pieces against Shakhtar. Like he's guaranteed probably 10 points minimum goal contribution. Suddenly he's at like 20 almost. And there's a chance that he can get to those 15, 18-point floor games regardless, especially if he ends up having Monopoly, which is definitely a chance he could. I love Kimmich here. Lee King in. This is probably a little bit more upside than your Kimmich. Monopoly, once again, similar or guaranteed Monopoly likely. The issue is that you're worried about his minutes a tiny bit, and he's just not got a ton of goal contributions all season, whether that be in league or UCL. But at 7,100, once again, just a guy who seems just too cheap. Just whether you want to go him over a Bayern mid, I think there's a lot of like a lot of a large balancing act to be done there between like Lee Kang-in, Kimmich, Musiala, and then this other guy I'm going to talk about, Olise, who once again wildly underpriced. He was like 10K on the Bundesliga slate like 3 days ago. He's been 10K almost every UCL game. And then suddenly he's got like the best matchup that they've had all tournament almost. And he's 6,500. It makes zero sense. Zero sense. He's a lock here. Even if he takes no sets, his talent, the amount of injuries Bayern has, I don't expect him to be an insta 60th minute sub like he has been. And even then, he's got so much upside that you take him for 60 minutes for 6,500. Like that's the best play on the slate for me. I just don't understand how he's ended up this cheap. Like he's cheaper than Kimmich and Musiala when he's been more than them every game. I just don't understand it whatsoever. So I love Elisa here. Because of that, like those four guys, it makes almost every other mid almost irrelevant in cash, just because you're going to go three of those four guys I just said, leaking in Kimmich, Musiala, Elise. Like it makes, but everyone else is a GV play. Like Tielemans, he's fine, but I wouldn't go him over Bayern or PSG when they're the same price. Modric, once again, Del Castillo, all same thing. All those guys are just ways to get off of what's going to be super chalky PSG and Bayern pieces. And that's what I really think their only use is just contrarian plays. So that I'm not going to put a ton of talk into most of these guys because you can really go anyone in GPP because it's have a game like anything can happen on here. If you want to look for upside, is the one thing. So I'd play guys like Chalanolu if there's no DiMarco for a monopoly and just a way to get off Bayern. Other guys like I'm considering, not a ton. Like I likely even in GPP play. I just rotate what 3 out of 4 Bayern and Lee Kang in guys I go. I'm not seeing a ton of other stuff. I'm really even considering. I talked about Çalhanoğlu. That's one. Virch, that's another contrarian mid I'd go. And then there's just not really a ton else. Despite it being a 7 gamer, all these games are pretty much coin flips. When Bayern, PSG are going to dominate. Like Seymour, if he's in midfield, it becomes a little bit more tempting. It's center back. I don't love that, but I can see just doing it to make the rest of the build work. But yeah, there's like no other really big pop out names because the Bayern P and Lee Kang In guys, Lee Kang or PSG guys is just mainly Lee Kang In. But yeah, him and Bayern mids. There's nothing else I really love. Defenders, there's some really nice defenders on the slate. Just the 3 most expensive ones: Hakimi, Grimaldo, DiMarco. I don't expect DiMarco to be in, but even if he is, I'd go Hakimi and Grimaldo over him just because they have the better matchups, better odds. Grimaldo just has had more upside than DiMarco typically all UCL. Some of these logs are crazy, like that 41-point score last game, just insane. He's got so much upside, and with Leverkusen having a decent amount of injuries themselves, especially at the striker position, definitely can get even more further forward than he has been. So I love Grimaldo. I love that as a play. I love Hakimi as a play with the matchup. Just been super solid, whether that be in league or UCL. But I like to go both of those guys. Alternatives to them, though, yeah, I like a DiMarco, like I talked about, a De Kuiper, and potentially scoring more Bayern. Guerrero, Sasha Bowie. If Guerrero starts on the wing like he did, or attacking mid wherever he played it further forward than left back, like he did over Bayern's last league game, that makes it a lot more debatable what defender combo you go, just because he's got a lot more upside. At left back, I just don't think he's that great, just because you've got Grimaldo and Hakimi on this who have so much upside despite the slightly tougher matchups. And I don't think Guerrero is just a guy who's going to get 15, 20 floor like those guys could from left back. From like attacking mid, if he starts there or on the wing, that's a lot more tempting. That's a lot more debatable. And who you go there. I don't know if I'd go him over Hakimi, but potentially Grimaldo. I could see it. Slight savings there, although not a ton, but it'd be a little bit more debatable on what you do there. Or you can just go Grimaldo, Guerrero. That's a little bit more of a savings bump between Hakimi and him. But both Grimaldo and Hakimi just scary fades. When they're averaging like 18, 19 points a game, That's super, super appealing, especially with favorable matchups. Because of that, once again, probably going to CB punt if you're not going the pay up defender route. Guys, I go like Hendricks, I don't mind at 3,800. Anyone else? I don't love most of these guys. Get Trout if he's like wing back, 3K is not bad. But yeah, like I said, I'm focusing on the pay ups here just because you can get so much value at mid and forward potentially from the underpriced Bayern guys, as well as PSG if we get like a Kolo Muani or something in for 5K. In terms of a goalkeeper, let me talk about first. Crapshoot. That's goalkeeper. That's what I have to say. Play whoever fits the rest of your build after you put in the outfield players you want. I definitely always prioritize outfield positions over goalkeeper just because there's so much variance. So much variance. In terms of a core, I'm putting Grimaldo in for now. I'm assuming Guerrero starts at fullback. I'm putting in Olise. I like him just above Kimmich, Musiala, and Lee Kang just because he's the cheapest of them. Although you're going to go three of those guys regardless. And I'm just going to go Hakimi for now. I'm going those three as a core just because I think there's an argument that can be made to get off of one of your Kimmich, or you're gonna have to get off of one of Kimmich elite, one of the four guys, since you only have so many slots. I just so I go Hakimi Grimaldo gives a little bit more freedom at which combo of those guys to go. And Elise, like I said, I just like him more than the other three, just barely. Oh yeah, guys, that'll be it, and I'll see you in the next one.